Well, this is a good one. I'm excited to bring to you my next guest, who is an NCAA champion at the University of Kentucky, a 12-year NBA player, 3-time All-Star, and champion at the next level in the National Basketball Association, Antoine Walker. He has played alongside legends in the game like Paul Pierce, Gary Payton, Shaquille O'Neal, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, and many more. In this sit-down, we discuss Michael Jordan, perhaps some stories, some hilarious Shaquille O'Neal stories as well, why he punched out a window in high school, losing out on the Illinois Mr. Basketball Award. He came in second, and clearing the air on past transgressions. If you are listening to this interview as a podcast, please give it a 5-star review and write a comment. If you're listening and watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give it a like, and do the same. It would mean the world. Without further ado, here is Antoine Walker. All right, y'all, we got another fantastic guest for you on the fully independent Rick Strom Show, and it is a former co-worker of mine. He's an NBA legend. He's gone to 3 All-Star games. He's probably heard this intro many times, so I'll stop it right there. Hello, Antoine Walker. How are you?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. It's good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too as well.
You grew up a Bulls fan. You're from Chicago. Who's your favorite Bull?
Well, probably Derrick Rose, my favorite Bull. Being a little biased in my selection, obviously, Derrick being from Chicago, I'm from Chicago. And just seeing how he was able to get drafted by his home team and, bring some life. We haven't had no life since Michael Jordan and the Bulls run. And Derrick brought life back to Chicago as a Chicago Bull fan, but also just a big fan of him being from Chicago as well. Southside kid, kind of got the same roots, grew up in the same neighborhoods, know a lot of the same people, and just turned out to be, I'm a big fan of his.
But let me go back to something real quick. If you were to pick a Bull that you grew up watching that's your favorite, who would it be?
Wow. It would have to be Michael. I would have to get to Michael. I was going to dig a little deep, but I really didn't.
How deep were you thinking?
Orlando Woolridge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Win Daly, like the old Bulls, like when I was a really young kid. But Michael would be the one, obviously.
Yeah. Why are you going chalk with Michael?
Because that's when it became real. I mean, the late 80 run, them trying to beat the Pistons, those were great series. And then to finally get over that hump and to really be a fan and enjoy that 91, 92, 93 season, that three-peat was special. I was a young kid, loving the game, and was a real fan. And to have the home team be on top of the world was great. Great to be a Bulls fan then. I mean, obviously the second three-peat, I was playing against them.
Right.
So that, obviously I wasn't necessarily a fan then anymore. So the first 3 was really special.
You saw The Last Dance, I assume.
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
I love documentaries like that because I know it's always, people don't understand the grind and the struggle that you go through to become champion. So I liked it a lot. Obviously, some controversy in there when you think about the Michael Scottie situation, but I liked it. I thought anytime you can give people perspective of how that team was built and how it's arguably the greatest NBA team ever, depending on what you want to say about the early Celtics and Lakers team. So it's great. I enjoyed every minute of it.
His competitiveness, you saw that firsthand, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it at another level. I got a unique opportunity to be around Mike, obviously, when he came back to play for the Wizards. But to see the work ethic he had every day to continue to try to be good. Obviously, he's Michael Jordan, and see him have to try to compete night in and night out at that age was great to see. But also, I got a chance to work out with him for 2 summers, and to see that side of it, too, was something special. And it actually made me hungry to win a championship, to want to work hard and know what type of work you need to put in to be at that level.
What specifically did you see that you came to that conclusion?
Watching a guy who's accomplished everything, who had won 6 titles, who's arguably the best player to ever play the game, still has the determination at 38, 39, 40 years old to be the best and to compete at a high level. His competitive levels are second to none. He wants to win at everything. And it's something that as a young player, it rubbed off on me. I hadn't won the championship by that time, but it made me want to be on that big stage and win one just from working out with him and understanding the work that puts into it. So that's the one thing that really like gravitated to me is that the work ethic that you got to put in to become a champion.
How good of an eater was he? Not like in terms of like quantity, but like clean eating. Was he stringent about taking care of his body?
Yeah, once we got into it, he got to a strict diet. Even when it comes to even us drinking alcohol, we would not drink we would not drink beer, we would not drink brown liquor. If we was going to have a drink, it was going to be like very low carb, maybe some vodka, and it would be straight. No juice, none of that in it, like really tighten up. And it wasn't just that, it's having a trainer, Tim Grover, every day, working out every single day. The way he worked out and catered to his body, it was special to see too. It actually, for a young guy, to actually understand what it takes to be a pro on every consistent basis.
Right. So you told Club 520 that he called you from a blocked number.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he called you from a blocked number. We always hear these stories about how Michael gets the better of other guys. Did you see in those runs a guy get the better of Michael?
Yeah, probably not necessarily the better of him, but compete at a very high level. Obviously, when Mike came back, he wanted everybody there. And at that time, people don't understand. In Chicago, we probably had about 25, 30 pros that were active in the league. So you got to think about the Quentin Richardsons, the Bobby Simmons, Darius Miles, even though I know he's not from Chicago, he was a guy here. So we had guys that can really compete and they go at him. And then you had all the guys coming in town, the Penny Hardaways of the world. So guys flying in and out, competing against them on a daily basis, it was kind of the tune-up to seeing how good he can be and was he still able to compete at the high level. So that's what made it great. The runs kind of was really good to kind of get yourself ready for that season.
Was he the best shit talker you ever heard?
One of the best, if not the best, yeah. He's definitely in my top three.
Who's like the Mount Rushmore of shit talkers?
Well, Mike's probably the Mount Rushmore because he's won so much. And if you ain't won championships, it's really hard to have a really tough conversation with him.
Right.
The argument, because he's such a winner and he's going to put everything back on winning. So he's up there. Gary Payton's another guy.
Who you played with.
Yeah, who I played with is a rare breed today. Kevin Garnett is another guy that talks a lot of trash in the court. So it's some guys out there that do it. Rushmore, you got one more. Oh, that's a tough one. Who I want to add? They're my top three guys.
Those are good. That's a good solid three. Who's your fourth?
Yeah, I'm trying to anybody else that I played against consistently that was always a guy that would trash talk. I'm going to have to go with those three.
So the fourth is just blank?
No, the fourth will probably be we had some very competitive trash talking was probably Tim Hardaway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Chicago guy too.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've put together quotes on some Tim Duncan stories. Darius Miles, I know you talked about this a little bit, and I compiled this prior to, I think that was Club 520 as well. But Darius Miles said he gave the nicest insults in NBA history. DeMarcus Boogie Cousins said, and I quote, "I talked shit to him. He scored 16 straight, tapped me on the ass and said, 'Good job, big fella.'" LaMarcus Aldridge said, "Scored 14 straight and hit me on the butt and said, 'You'll be okay.'" And then KG said, "He would hit you in phrases. Ooh, got you. Another almost. This is the worst right here." Taps him on the ass and goes, "Nice try." Why was that Tim's demeanor? Why was he like that?
Tim was sneaky, man. You know, he's such a competitor. I played against Tim in college. We played him in the tournament, I think, to get to the Final Four. And we double teamed him like crazy in college. We were sending two people at him and really just trying to smother him because he was just that good coming into the league. Um, I think, you know, he had a unique skill set. I mean, we hadn't seen a big guy as skilled as him, with great touch around the basket. And then think about it. Tim Duncan added that bank fadeaway shot off the
Mm-hmm.
18 feet. He's probably the only player that used the glass like that. So I just think the way he did it, I think that's why you hear those comments with some of those great power forwards that went against him, because he's not a trash talker, but he plays the game tough. You can't take him out of his game, no matter how much trash you talk to him. He's going to stay consistent. His demeanor never changes. Um, and that rubs guys the wrong way. You know, guys get mad when they can't frustrate you. They
Mm-hmm.
can't head. He's just one of those guys you can't get in his head. And that's what made Tim special. And he faced everybody. I mean, he went against through his career, 20-year career, he went against some of the old great power forwards. And when I think about Charles Barkley and the Karl Malones of the world towards the end of their career, and then obviously all the good ones, you know, the Dirk Nowinskis and Kevin Garnett, of course, and so playing against all those type of guys, he's won against tremendous and great power forwards, and always held his own.
What I think is pretty frustrating, there's a really solid dude who played ball, I think in Europe maybe for like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's Chilltown32 on TikTok. He had one of the fun. You know who he is?
I've heard of him.
Okay. He had one of the funniest reactions because he's on like a millennial Gen Z podcast. And they're talking about how Anthony Davis would just kill Tim Duncan. And he was like, "You don't even know how good Tim Duncan was. You have no idea." And like, it's true because I've seen both of them. I've seen both of them play. Tim Duncan, to me, is thought of as like being so consistently good that he's an afterthought.
I think because it wasn't the way he did it. He wasn't fancy. And what I mean by fancy, he wasn't dunking on you. Obviously, yeah, of course he's going to dunk on a few people. Very basic game when you think about, obviously, a 17-footer, right hook, left hook, jump hook. Great defensive player. Doesn't get a lot of credit for that. He can obviously guard his man. Great shot blocker. And also, too, I think for Tim, you got to realize he came in and played with one of the greatest centers of all time.
That's right.
So you got to imagine what he learned that first couple years. I think maybe David only played 1 or 2 years with him. Maybe only one. I'm not sure. But just learning from David Robinson. I mean, David Robinson was the ultimate defensive player in the league, one of the best big men we had, and doesn't get talked about a lot when we talk about great centers. But David Robinson should be in everybody's top 10 as best centers to ever play the game.
Agreed. And I remember there was an interview that he gave where they were talking about when they drafted Tim Duncan. And he was like, thank God they drafted another center. Like, we needed to carry on this tradition of great Spurs big men.
And it's crazy that, and obviously you saw, and if you go back to this, and I can remember this like it was yesterday, you saw David Robinson really take Tim Duncan under his wing.
Yep.
And you could tell Tim had just the ultimate respect for him. And even when they won their championship that year, and obviously Tim was a huge part of him getting that championship, you could just tell through their interaction that he's played a huge part in Tim's career.
Definitely. Let's go back to something that I found to be very interesting when I was looking into your backstory. So you went to Mount Carmel. You are your high school's all-time leading scorer. You have more than 2,000 points. You were the 1994 Times Player of the Year. You were a first-team selection. And yet, somehow, some way, when it came to Illinois Mr. Basketball voting, Jerry G beat you out with 92 first-place votes. You got 84. 658 points. You got 614. Take me back to high school Twan. When that happened, what was your reaction? Because you did so much that year, and you still came second.
I mean, I was disappointed. because obviously if you come from Chicago, that's an award that you obviously can stick with you forever and something that you can always remember. So I was disappointed. And actually, I won my senior year. I won the head-to-head battle with Jerry G. As far as our team is won, and we both played well stat-wise. But I won that battle. I think for me, the reason why I didn't get it, I wasn't. I was kind of a hothead a little bit in high school. And what I mean by that, I was a kid that talked trash a little bit. I wasn't always necessarily politically correct, to say the least, when I was in high school. So I think that hurt me to some of the voters, maybe because of my attitude a little bit. But I think that's really what was it. Because technically, we both were in the Catholic League, even though he was Class A, I was Double A, but we both were playing the same competition. So it was not like one of us had an advantage over each other. So it was just one of those things. I think it came down to just a couple, writers. Some writers like you, some of them didn't. But I also could take responsibility too. I was a hothead back then too.
Right.
I think that hurt me a little bit as far as in the voters' eyes.
Right, but I'm just curious, like when I think of this, all I have to do is go back to some Hall of Fame voters when it comes to Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like Ichiro Suzuki is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Everybody should vote for him. I'm pretty sure there was another big name, maybe Jeter, did not get 100% of the vote. That's an obvious one, okay? So when I look back on this, and I think Ken Griffey, I think he was 100%, but there have been other times where it's like, this guy is obviously a Hall of Famer. What did he do to you? Considering that you are in the unique position to answer that question, is it because you gave like one bad quote to a media member? Like, I don't think sports fans know this stuff.
Yeah, I think it could be that, or it could be sometimes, it's the way you handle yourself, the way you carry yourself. If you're not media friendly. I think about when you just start rambling off names, I think about T.O.
Yeah.
Terrell Owens situation was like kind of crazy at first. Seemed like he wasn't going to get in for a minute. But I just think sometimes, and it's nothing wrong with that. Some people take the voters. That's why I'm a big advocate for players voting each other in, because the respect factor, and players know who's the Hall of Famers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Get writers and people that want to write, and sometimes if you have it out with them, they can hold that against you and not vote for you and those type of things. So it does plays a part. I mean, some guys, and I'm pretty sure you saw some guys like, maybe he should. How's he in the Hall of Fame and this guy's not? Mm-hmm. I'll just throw a name out to you like Mark Aguirre. I wonder how he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's just the name that just randomly just brought up in my head. But think about that. Like, well, how is he not in that? I wonder what was the writers thinking? What did he do wrong? Who did he rub the wrong way? So I'm interested. I mean, I would love to find that out.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just think it's just one of those things sometimes. The writers, if they don't like you, you're not getting that vote. I'm not sure, how many writers it takes for them not to like you. But, sometimes that happens.
Do you think a writer could have seen one of your games in high school where a referee made an incorrect call on you and authentically you not necessarily flip out, but you react strongly because you feel as though there's an injustice, then they write about your reaction in the paper and hold it against you?
Oh, without question. I believe that could have happened a couple times.
What happened?
I played a game with a lot of emotion. I'm into the game, and that even carried on me through. So I got to the pros where I would get my fair share of technical fouls. So I'm engaged, and I'm a competitor, and I'm involved in the game. So I think that can happen in certain cases where if you don't kind of tote the line the right way to certain people, they hold that stuff against you. And, it's unfortunate sometimes because, sometimes the numbers speak for themselves and the talent speaks for itself. So you like, how's this guy not in? And, how's this guy not getting this award or that award? Sometimes it's just that. They just don't like your personality.
When you say you played the game with emotion, I mean, yes, it's stating facts that you played the game with emotion, but how does emotion help you play better?
Um, I think I think that's when the competitive part come in at. I think the emotion part is all about being competitive. If you're competitive and you care about winning, um, all those things line up. I'm a competitor. I like to win. I've been very fortunate in my career to win one at the collegiate level and at the pro level. It's a very unique group of guys that have done that. And I've just always wanted to win. And I've been very lucky in my career to also be a part of just winning situations. Um, and that's something that every player doesn't get an opportunity to do. You see guys seek out in their career. You look at a Carmelo Anthony, a Tracy McGrady, some of these great guys that have played that have never played in the NBA Finals, that have played there. So it happens sometimes. So you can't take that for granted. So I always try to consider myself a competitor and a guy that wants to win and also play the part in winning.
Let's go back to high school. There was a former teammate of yours that turned out to be pretty good. When I say the name Donovan McNabb, your high school teammate, what comes to mind?
Talented, super athletic, loves to win, and a competitor. I can't overstate how much a competitor he is. It was a joy to watch him quarterback in high school. I was there to be able to go 4 years with Donovan and see him progress from a freshman to a senior as a quarterback, but also as a basketball player. Second leading scorer on our team, was my Robin. Really helped me out a lot tremendously. One of the best two-sport guys that I've seen play. I thought he could have continued to do it in college. Obviously, he was on the team, the basketball team, but I mean, this guy ended up being a top 5 pick at quarterback. But I thought he was a guy that could have played both sports. He was that athletic and that talented.
Would he admit to being your Robin?
In high school, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. How good of a basketball player was he, though? Seriously.
Definitely Division One. I would probably say mid-level, mid-major.
Like a Wichita State? Wichita is actually major. That's a bad call.
Well, I would just say mid-major. I would say he was a mid-major basketball player and obviously a major Division One football player. I think he was competitive enough. If he had to go play major Division One basketball, he would have. He could have.
Sure. This actually brings up an interesting point because there are some football players who, there are basketball players who transition to playing football, like a Jimmy Graham. Why do you think it is easier, aside from the number of players on a team, why do you think it's easier for guys like Peppers, Jimmy Graham, Donovan McNabb to make that sort of transition and pursue football more so than basketball?
I think it's really just your athletic ability is what kind of separates it and where your skill set is at. Donovan, you look at it, I mean, in high school, and I'm just judging off of high school, he was an option quarterback by senior year. Now he's throwing bombs. You know what I mean? So he developed from a running quarterback with that athletic ability to, actually having a real strong throwing arm. I think if you even look at Peppers in college, he was athletic and obviously rebound, but does that game translate to a long-term career on the basketball court? Possibly not. So you tend to go to the sport that actually fits your skill set the best. And we can't, obviously none of those guys that you named made a bad decision because they turned out to be Hall of Famers in their sport. So those guys made the right decision, but there's nothing wrong. I mean, I even think back to myself, and I'm not putting myself at that level. I mean, I love baseball. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to be a baseball player. But hey, you grow to be 6'9", your strike zone get a little big.
Right.
You know what I mean? It becomes kind of hard to play baseball at 6'9". So it's just one of those things. So, but it was my first love. I loved it. I could compete. I thought I could play against the best, but my skill set was better suited for basketball than baseball.
Right. Is it true Simeon Rice was 2 years ahead of you in high school as well?
Yes, he was 2 years.
Oh my God, you guys were stacked.
Yeah, we had I mean, they're still very good to this day. I mean, they won state this year, but they do a terrific job with the football program over at Mount Carmel and get developing these guys and creating good college athletes to pros. They do a great job.
All right. I found something in the Chicago Tribune from the year 1994 of you.
Oh, wow.
Is it true, Antoine Walker, that you punched out a classroom window in frustration?
Yes. So we was halftime of a game. So it's funny. So we didn't have a locker room. So our locker room was the classroom at halftime. So we didn't go to a physical locker room. We went to one of the classrooms. And we went into the classroom, and as I was entering the classroom, you know how you pissed off, like you got a bad call or something happens. But when I swung my hand went right through the window. I mean, blood everywhere. I thought I was I was bleeding so much, so they like wrapped it up super, super, super tight. And I finished the game. I actually finished the game, and then they rushed me to the hospital to get stitches afterwards.
So you punched a window. Your hand went through. Was it your shooting hand?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And
Were you limited in the second half?
No, because I just tied it up real tight. It didn't hurt. I just was bleeding a lot. I lost a lot of blood. And then it, formed this little scar and everything. I actually still got the scar on my arm, actually, right now to this day from that incident. But yeah, it was just one of those things. Yep, just pissed off, but not really like, just natural emotion. I think maybe we could have been losing, or maybe I was having a bad shooting night and just hit my hand and it went right through like a dumbass.
Okay. Okay. Don't feel bad about it. It's 30 years ago.
I know.
What was that conversation like afterward? Did they address it with you at all?
No, I rushed me straight to the hospital. They just wanted to get stitches. They knew I needed stitches because it was, how it is with an injury. It kept bleeding.
Right.
So they couldn't get it to stop bleeding. The trainer couldn't get it to stop bleeding. So they was like, look, you need to go get some stitches. So I got to the hospital and got some stitches. Luckily, I was young and youthful, and I was able to lose that type of blood.
You know how many you had in that game?
I think we ended up winning. I had a good game. I ended up having a good game, but I wasn't having a good game by halftime.
Right, clearly.
I didn't lose a lot in high school, so
I know you didn't. I know you didn't. You said on a recent podcast that you went to Kentucky, but you wanted to transfer. Why?
College wasn't. When I went to Kentucky, it was different than what I thought. I was a little homesick, so that was a problem. And then on the court, I thought I was going to be playing more. I mean, I came in probably playing 8-9 minutes a night, and I didn't understand that. So it was just me in the beginning of the season. Coach was bringing me along slow. I had Roger Rose. I'm not sure if you remember him, playing in front of me. He was a McDonald's All-American, top 5 player in the country. So it was kind of like just waiting my turn. But that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to play. I thought I was going there and play. And I played a lot, like the first couple games of the season. So I got kind of the false sentiment that I was going to be out there involved in the rotation. But I wasn't playing a lot. And I got pissed. And I came home. You get a Christmas break. I came home for Christmas. And I really, really contemplated transferring. I actually even reached out to University of Illinois about transferring there. But it was a real process for about 3 days. And then I changed my mind and came back to school. And lo and behold, about 10, 15 games after that, I was named SEC MVP of the SEC tournament. And the rest is history after that.
Absolutely. Would you play with Jerry G if you transferred?
Yep, I would have played with him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
I never thought about that, but I would have played with him, yeah.
And you would have had to sit out a year.
That's a great point, Rick. I'm glad. Now that's something that I should have said first. That probably was the biggest reason, to be honest, why I did not transfer. is because I would have had to sit out, and I wouldn't have wanted to sit out. I couldn't handle sitting out a whole year.
Right.
But I'm glad you brought that up. That's probably the biggest reason why I did not transfer, is because I would have had to sit out.
Right, because that would be even more grueling. It's just to sit there and watch for a year.
Yeah, it would have been bad. So that's a great point. That probably was the number one kicker why I didn't transfer.
Did you contact Illinois, or was it just like thinking about it?
Oh no, I'm contacting and just tell them, hey, I'm thinking about just seeing if it's possible.
What'd they say?
Yeah, it's possible. But it's what you said, which I forgot to allude to. It was what you said. Hey, you still got to sit out.
Yeah.
You won't. It really was that I wouldn't be eligible till that Christmas time next year, the following year.
Mm.
I would have still had to sit out. I would have had to sit out the whole season, and still wouldn't be eligible to the beginning of that part of the next season.
Right. So that would have been even more grueling.
Yeah, it would have been even worse.
How do you feel about considering that? I mean, look, the youngsters nowadays don't know. Like, you would have had to sit out. Dudes had to sit out. Back in the day when Bird and Magic were playing, they had to sit out the first year in order to even have the opportunity to play their sophomore year. How do you currently feel about the transfer portal and the transfer rules in college sports, particularly college basketball?
I think everybody should be allowed to do it once. I don't like to see them guys going to 2-3 different schools. I don't think you should be allowed to do that. But sometimes you can make a mistake coming out and pick the wrong school. Sometimes the style of play doesn't fit you. Sometimes you don't get along with your teammates. I mean, college is such a different animal. A lot of guys sometimes have never been away from home. They can get homesick and not be able to adapt if you haven't, adapt. I mean, I was a city guy and I went to Kentucky with horses. You know what I mean? I mean, that's an adjustment, Rick. You know what I'm saying? Seriously, that's a huge. From a guy coming from the south side of Chicago to Kentucky, and I'm down there with horses. I've never been involved, been around nothing like that in my life. So I can see it. So I do think you should be allowed to transfer at least once for that reason only. Because, some kids do make mistakes sometimes. But I do not like the multiple transferring, because you still want to keep the essence of being able to be a coach and be able to teach a kid, and a kid shouldn't run from discipline and the opportunity to develop. So I'm a firm believer in that. But I do believe sometimes we do make a mistake and we should be able to go to another school. So I think you should be able to transfer at least once.
That obviously goes with saying that if the coach leaves, then I would also grant the wish of the player being able to. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
If a guy recruits you and he ends up losing his job, the coach loses his job, you should have that option.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you want to stay, and you don't know if the new coach may not like the way you play, you may not fit his style. So I think you should be able to at least transfer once, just for those type of reasons.
You said you went to Kentucky. You were a city kid, and you're surrounded by horses. Mm-hmm. Did you ride a horse?
No. I don't deal with I don't do the animals, man.
What do you mean?
I don't do animals. I'm not a dog, a cat person, but that's never been me. I didn't grow up with them, so that's never been me. So yeah, I try to stay away from animals as much as possible.
But you've never had a pet?
No, I never had a pet. But it's crazy now. My brothers and sisters, they've had dogs and stuff like that. So, but I've never had a pet.
But how do you feel about like being in the house with their dogs?
Not a fan. I stay. I had when I was engaged, my ex-fiance, she had a dog, and I literally, and I hope dog lovers don't hate me, but I literally tried to scare the dog so he wouldn't climb me a lot.
Give me an example. What would you do?
I'm just saying, just like, dogs know when you're friendly. You know how it is. Animals know when you're nice to them and you're friendly. I just wouldn't give them no attention. I wouldn't really get a dog.
Oh, so you were an asshole. You weren't scaring him. You were an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
On purpose.
Right.
Yeah, just so. But I never really had a lot of interaction with animals. So that was my one interaction when around the animal. I'm talking about especially in my house.
Right. Are you scared of certain animals? Are you like scared of a horse?
I'm not scared of certain animals, but is there some animals I probably don't want to be around? I mean, I don't like them dogs that like them pit bulls and all that. Like, no, I don't like them vicious dogs. I don't the little dogs that the girls get, and them little dogs don't bother me.
Uh-huh.
But you get them vicious dogs. I don't want no smoke.
Yeah, I mean, who wants smoke from a vicious dog?
But there's some out there, right? Ain't like I don't know. I'm not a big dog guy, but what's like a pit bull or what else?
I mean, I think pit bulls are awesome, but it just depends on the pit bull. It also depends on where the dog comes from and who their owners are and how they were raised and what environment they were in. And if their dad was Antoine Walker, who didn't give a shit about them,
But I learned this. Dogs know when you don't like them.
For sure.
They know that. So when I'm around dog now, I know how to act like I like them.
I feel you. You went to the NBA. You had a 12-year career. Basketball Reference, do you know the 3 nicknames they listed for you?
No.
You want to take a guess?
I would have to say Twan.
Yeah, Twan's in there.
I don't know. The Wiggles? Something to do with the Wiggle.
The Wiggles? No.
No, it's not.
The Wiggles. That's funny, though.
I don't know. You're going to have to help me out.
Cyber Twan.
I love it. Video game.
Employee number 8.
Love it. All Adidas.
Those are your 3.
Thank you, Adidas. I appreciate it. I've been called that by my closest friends, people in the street, all those different names. I got my boys still call me Cyber now.
Who?
All my boys, they call me Cyber.
Oh, okay. Because I saw in an interview, Amon Shumpert called you Cyber.
Yeah, that's like guys from Chicago all call me Cyber.
What's your favorite of the 3?
Employee number 8. Employee number 8. I got to give Adidas all the credit for that. They came up with that whole employee number 8 campaign slogan, and it stuck with me the rest of my life. So I'm appreciative of that.
Were you in those meetings when they came up with that?
Huh?
Were you in those meetings when they came up with that?
Yeah, when they was trying to put a campaign behind me. And it's funny, the little small, real quick, the backstory to the number 8 is that the Celtics don't have any numbers. Mm-hmm. So my number was 24, obviously coming out. So 24 was not available. And they basically started running off the numbers that were available. There was nothing like, it was football numbers, 53, 2. I'm like, yo, 0. I'm like, no. And D Brown had 7.
Right.
Obviously, Bill Russell had 6. I was like, you know what? Give me 8. Greg Minor had number 9. He had been there a couple years. So it was like, you know what? Just give me 8. And we made something happen with 8.
For sure.
But it was very random. I wore 23 in high school because every kid wanted to wear 23. Mm-hmm. Because of Michael Jordan. So, but 24 was the number I picked because I was a big fan of Jamal Mashburn.
Yeah. Kentucky guy.
Yeah, so it was one of those things. But that number 8 was it was strictly because there was no numbers available.
Interesting. I also find this to be rather fascinating. When we're talking about big name corporations like Nike, Converse, Adidas, Reebok, we can read about this stuff. And obviously everybody knows the Michael Jordan story at this point. But first off, how old were you when you were in that room with Adidas?
19.
Okay, so you were super, super young.
Mm-hmm.
Take me through the process, and I hate asking a question that way. Take me through the process about at 19 years old, you are being pitched by a billion-dollar corporation. Like, what are the intricacies that people don't know that goes on in those rooms?
Well, I had finally hired an agent, and at that time, I had David Falk was my agent. They were called Fame at the time, agency. And I hired David Falk. And Sonny Vaccaro, who was Nike in the beginning, before my time, but when I was in high school, he switched over to Adidas. Mm-hmm. So in the AAU circuit, we played in the Adidas AAU circuit. So Sonny got to know me as a kid. Obviously, I came to his camps. I played in obviously the Adidas Round Ball Classic game, and we just was building a relationship. So when I decided to go pro, and what Sonny helped me out a lot in my decision to go pro, just real quickly. So when I was thinking about after my sophomore year, we win a championship. I'm kind of sitting around at home, and I'm like, man, I'm hearing things. My friends are like, man, you can go pro. I'm hearing it, but I needed to get a real answer to really figure out if I really can go pro. So I reached out to Sonny Vaccaro and I said, Sonny, I'm thinking about going pro. And he was like, listen, I don't advise kids to go pro, but give me a couple days and I'll let you know. He takes a couple days, calls me back, and was like, look, you're a lottery pick from the people that I've talked to, the scouts. And I took that information to Coach Pitino. Coach Pitino checked into it, and lo and behold, I was putting my name in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, because I had the relationship with Sonny, Sonny came to me and said, look, I want you to wear Adidas. I want to offer you a contract, and let's sit down and talk. I hired David Falk. Sonny flies in. Come to find out, I'm in a cat fight between Sonny and David Falk over Michael Jordan. It wasn't even about me. It was about Michael Jordan and their beef with Michael. And I mean, it seemed like they was going to come to blows in that room.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to imagine, I'm a 19-year-old kid sitting there. I don't know what's going on. I don't have a clue about the whole situation with Michael Jordan, and they arguing and going back and forth. And it was a lady in the room that worked for Adidas named Susie. And Susie Laserbeam, and she basically spoke up and really basically got in between both guys and said that you guys are treating him unfairly. We're not talking about Michael. We're talking about Antoine. We're trying to get a deal done from him. And Sonny apologized. Obviously, Davey apologized to me. And ironically enough, Sonny ended up offering me more money after that. Maybe because he felt bad that they argued in front of me and made it about Michael Jordan and not about me. But that's a true story. In an office room, all of us in there, about 10 people, they fighting like cats and dogs, and we trying to get this deal done. But ultimately, I still end up signing the 5-year deal at that particular time with Adidas after that. But I was a little shell-shocked. I mean, I was 19 years old watching these guys go at it was weird, but we ended up getting the deal done, and Adidas was great to me after that.
That's all that matters. All right, I don't want to bring the mood down, but again, this is your life.
Yeah,
this is shit that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, the media was different. It just was. Like, we didn't have, 90 million podcasts off of like one particular sport, or like even League of Legends. Like, shit was just different. So Bob Ryan in 1998 had a really awful, highly critical article of you.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, this is July 19th, 1998, Boston Globe. This is him. The simple fact of the matter is that Antoine Walker is a punk. Antoine Walker is such an arrogant, misguided yes punk that there's nothing either ML Carr, Rick Pitino, or the Pope could do with this kid. His juvenile mugging is classless. It irritates opponents. Yes, Antoine, people on other clubs really do hate you, and it embarrasses the organization. In no sense is he a leader. He is a classic product of the modern basketball system. He mentions AAU, who has only met one coach, Rick Pitino, who has ever told him no about anything. He's arrogant and classless about his profession, merely a punk who can play a little basketball. Join me in wishing him well at his next destination. Twan, what the fuck? Like, I cannot believe that this was printed. You were young at this time. I mean, when you read that at a young age, how did you feel?
I mean, what's crazy too about the point, I'm gonna get to that, is that, like you said, it wasn't social media back then. So you actually reading the newspaper. So you actually open up the newspaper and reading this article. I confronted him, and I expressed my displeasure in the article. I asked him and basically told him I need him to keep his comments to strictly basketball.
That's fair.
that I was not appreciative of some of the language that he used, and he's taking it to a step that is going to get bigger than basketball. So we had this conversation, and I basically told him that um, I'm going to let you slide, but don't come around me. I don't want you. You can write what you want to write. And if I go 0 for 18, obviously that's your job. You're going to write it. But keep any personal attacks of my name out your mouth. You are not allowed to have personal attacks of me anymore. So if I go 0 for 18, you can write that. I play bad. Do what you need to do. I can't stop you from that. But you will never have another personal attack on me either. And I left it at that.
And what was your working relationship like after that?
I mean, he would never come up to me and just interview me. He could obviously, when media session was in the locker room, I'm pretty sure he'll be in the back or surrounded in there and, get comments. Because we were in the playoffs a couple years, so he covered us pretty close. So he would, I don't know what he was writing at that point. I kind of just challenged him out. But as long as he didn't say anything that I felt like that was personal, taking personal attacks at me, was fine. And if I go 0 for 18, you write what you're supposed to write. I'm not telling you, you got to do your job. But the personal attacks had to stop.
Right.
But I did it. It's crazy that you asked me that, but I did address it. Obviously, I was not happy about it. Thank God it was not in the social media time. Because no telling where that could have led to. You know what I'm saying?
Well, elaborate on that. How would it be different?
I just think because, the stuff gets picked up, you start to create rumors and things about players and stuff like that. You don't know how that could have affected me, my marketing opportunities off the court, way other teams may look at me. I mean, Bob Ryan's a very respectful and legendary reporter. So when those type of guys make those type of comments, people tend to listen. So you have to be careful in those situations. So I'm glad it wasn't in that type of social media setting at all.
What would it be like if you two saw each other?
I probably would speak now. And the only reason why is because, I think because I'm on the side of the fence now a little bit.
Right.
And doing media, I know how hard it is. But I know not to take personal attacks on people. And you've done media. We know that. We've been critical of people, but we try to keep it in the essence of their play.
Mm-hmm.
You try not to make it personal because sometimes you don't know those players and people personally. So you try to keep it, on whatever sport they're playing. So that's just how I am and how I try to do it.
There was another, I'll borrow your word, legendary writer in Boston media, and that was Bill Simmons.
Oh, yes.
He wrote for ESPN Page 2. I attended nearly every home game during Walker's first 6 seasons. There were times when I honestly wondered if the fans wanted him to fail. Is that true? Did you feel that way?
No, I didn't feel that way. I think in the beginning, and Boston fans and people, didn't see a big guy shooting threes. I just think that's what it was. It was just different from what they used to seeing. I think that was a little irritating because it wasn't necessarily the traditional style of play back then that obviously we see now. Obviously teams are shooting 60, 73s a game, so it's easy now. But back then, I just think because of the three-point shot, people didn't see that. I think it took people to enjoy me dancing, doing a little dance. It took a while. You know what I mean? Because I would dance regardless if we could be up 10, down 10. If I made a good move, a good play, I may dance to celebrate that move or that play. So I think it was just different. People hadn't seen that. So I think that's what kind of threw the fan base off a little bit.
Because you were dancing?
Yeah, I used to get, dancing was a problem for some people. Some people didn't like that.
In Boston?
Yeah, it's grown that people started loving it in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Heinsohn called it the Walker Wicker. He the one gave it the name. You know what I mean? And Tommy Heinsohn, who was commentating majority of my games in Boston, it didn't even bother him, and he's old school as it comes.
That's true.
And it didn't even bother him after a while.
Right.
He started to walk a wiggle.
I was actually going to ask you about that a little bit later on.
Yeah.
There's one more quote from Simmons that I'd like you to react to. He said, Antoine's best quality was also his worst. He always riled up the wrong teams, challenged the wrong guys, took that one extra three we didn't need. While he was heckled from the stands almost always, he sought out the offending voices and stared them down. The guy was a mess, a maddening, talented mess.
I mean, that doesn't bother me because I play the game with a lot of emotion. Do I think I'm the biggest trash talker? No. But can I talk trash with the best of them? Yes. That's definitely, I definitely can do that. But I think people sometimes, I play the game with a lot of emotion, man. I mean, with a lot of fire. I love the game. That's how I grew up. I grew up loving the game, all aspects of it. I'm a competitor. I like to win. I like to compete. And that's just what me. I didn't wear my emotions on my sleeve. I came out and I showed my emotions. It wasn't something that I tucked in. I played the game fiery, especially early on in my career where it was me and Paul. We had to deliver night in, night out. We were trying to turn this story franchise around and get it back to respectability. People got to understand, I won 15 games my first year.
Right.
To win a national title. I won 15 games and I probably lost 7, 8 in college, maybe 10. I'm not. I know we was. Maybe I don't know if I got the 10 losses total in 2 years in college.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think where I was coming from. I'm coming from a winner's mentality, and so my thought process was different, and trying to turn things around. But I always played the game with a lot of emotion. That was just me. And if people would have studied me and even go back to college, I was dancing in college. Mm-hmm. I'll get dunk and dance in college, and coach would be like, as long as you can get in that press. Like, coach, hey, you can dance, but make sure you're in that press.
That's so funny.
You know? And I mean, and to be honest, and I've been around, that's crazy. And about that, I played for coaches that didn't care for it. Don Nelson, when I got traded there in Dallas, he told me he didn't really want me dancing. He asked me not to really do it. And I was, I mean, who gonna question Don Nelson? Mm-hmm. Hall of Fame coach. I mean, he wasn't a big fan of it, so I respected that.
Hall of Fame coach and big weed smoker.
Huh?
Big weed smoker, Don Nelson.
Oh, I don't know. He was a good golfer. I golfed with him a lot.
He's a good golfer.
Oh yeah, he's a golfer.
But
he was back then.
Right.
He was a good man, but yeah. So I mean, you get to different coaches. A real story, a story real quick is that I remember Larry Brown was the coach when he's coaching, I think, Charlotte. Maybe it was Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to get back into the NBA. And I remember hearing a story. He didn't personally tell me, but I was working out for the team, trying to get back in the league. I thought I still had another year or two left in my body. And I went down and worked out with them guys in the summer. And the rumblings came back to me that Larry Brown has always kind of like disliked me because of me dancing. You know, we played them in the first round of playoffs, I think the year after they made it to the finals. And I was dancing a lot that series. And they pissed him off. And lo and behold, now I'm coming around trying to make his team.
Right.
So that wasn't the best time that the dancing happened. But yeah, it was brought to my attention, like, you know, you pissed Larry off back in the day with the dancing. He wasn't a big fan of it. So, you know, some people hold grudges. So it was like one of those type of situations too. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't do it no other way.
Absolutely. You scored 15,649 points. You played in 893 games. Is it true you played with Jason Tatum's dad at one point?
Yes.
How was he as a player?
Good. Pick up ball in the summertime. Larry Hughes used to come to Chicago. Larry Hughes is one of his best friends.
Oh, yeah.
And Larry Hughes spent a lot of time in Chicago with us training. He used to train with Tim Grover. So I got to know Larry and his guys a lot. They would stay spend the summers up here with us in Chicago. So, yeah, his father was good. I mean,
And yeah, go ahead.
good, competitive, good player. No, I don't. When you say certain guys good, everybody's not a pro. No,
Hmm.
I don't do that, but he definitely can play.
There was a moment in the playoffs where you got into it with a few different guys. One guy was Cliff Robinson. What
Hmm.
happened with Cliff? What happened between you two?
Cliff was a versatile power forward, kind of same skill set I had, can shoot the three, can dribble. Um, and I was the young guy. I was the new young guy. You know what I mean? Coming in, trying to get that. Them Detroit teams were really good
Hmm.
that we went against that we ultimately ended up beating. But just competitive. We going at it. You know what I mean? Me and Paul, I'm young. We're trying to, like, we feel like we can get to the finals. We were feeling ourselves. I was playing at a very high level. Um, Basketball wise. So I mean, I was feeling myself. But yeah, we used to talk. We had some battles.
You did have some battles.
Cliff was good though. Cliff was very good defender. Could shoot the three. Had a really high skill set. But I enjoyed playing against him.
Another guy that you went up against was Kenyon Martin.
Yeah,
Kenyon Martin, this is a quote that was written that he baited you into a trash talking technical. You would also go face to face with Kerry Kittles in that series
mm.
after you were trying to establish position on a jump ball. But you and Kenyon, did he bait you into a tech?
Man, all the time. See, Kenyon Martin was, and people always ask me this, is one of the toughest people that guarded me because of his size. Kenyon Martin's about 6'6", 6'7", but he had really quick feet. Um, so he made things a little difficult for me because my advantage most of the time with most power forwards was my ability to be able to step outside, shoot the three, and also take those bigger guys off the dribble. But Kenyon was a smaller power forward, so it was a little tougher to take Kenyon off the dribble. So he guarded me really well at times. I had some games, I had some bad shooting nights, a couple nights against him, and we played them a lot um, in like a 2-year span. And I'm talking about preseason and regular season, then playoffs. And they beat us both years. They swept us the second. They beat us in six the first year, swept us the second year,
Mm-hmm.
and played them. You know, we play them. They're in our division, so you play them 4 times a year. Plus, we played them a couple times in preseason. I mean, we were playing against each other all the time, so it became like a rivalry between me and him. But it was fun though. Very competitive guy. I always give him his credit when anybody asks me who's the toughest guy that you've had that defended you. I always say Kenyon Martin. I had some nights on him, but I had some bad shooting nights too.
How tough was it playing against Jason Kidd?
The time that I played against him was unbelievable. He was the Magic Johnson. I mean, he averaged a triple double on us in both playoff series. Um, just unwavering, unbelievable eye vision, making us better. And then we caught the scoring Jason Kidd too,
Mm.
where he was actually scoring the basketball as well too. So I got the utmost respect for Jason.
And then the next year, after you guys got swept, you were actually traded to Dallas.
Hmm.
You guys went 52-30. See, I know that one of the most popular what ifs is Derrick Rose, and another really popular what if I think is Greg Oden, and another one is Brandon Roy.
Hmm.
Come to think of it, I think one of the bigger what ifs is if Nash and Dirk stayed together in
Yeah,
Dallas.
that was a very unique situation. The team, we were really good, really talented. We had about 6, 7 guys that could really play. Like Antoine Jameson was the sixth man.
Yeah, you
Was
guys
six,
were stacked that year.
um,
Finley, Bradley.
and we won 52 games with Steve Nash missing quite a few games. I can't recall a number. You can probably look it up. But Steve Nash missed a ton of games that year. Um, but we had a really versatile group. Um, but I think we might have stayed together another year. But if Steve Nash was a free agent, So he went into the free agency, and that's when he signed with the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure what happened with him and Mark, where the negotiations didn't work out right, and he ended up with the Phoenix Suns. I was shocked, blown away. And a backstory to that. So when Steve Nash jumped out and first day of free agency and signed with the Phoenix Suns and kind of shook the world up a little bit, I remember Mark Cuban calling me and telling me that he's going to have to trade me because I was going into the last year of my deal, and he had to get a point guard.
Mm.
And he never felt, he didn't know he was going to have to do that. So that's how I ended up getting traded for Jason Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And end up going to Atlanta. I was going to have an expiring contract, looking for a big deal. Plus, they needed a point guard, and I remember Mark calling me and saying, "Antoine, I'm gonna have to trade you for a point guard," and that's how I ended up with the Atlanta Hawks.
Before we get to the Hawks, in that series when you guys lost to the Kings, that was a gentleman's sweep. That was a really good team. That was a Bibby, Brad Miller, Doug Christie, Vlade Peja team. Yep. So you obviously, there were times when you had to guard Vlade, right? What was his game as a defender?
They were so skilled. They moved the ball and passed the ball so well. That's what made them unique. Him, Weber, big guys that can pass, make plays for others. And then that year, they were one of the better shooting three-point shooting teams too. With Peja Stojakovic, Turkoglu.
Hito was on that team too.
Yeah, Bibby, Bobby Jackson.
Gerald Wallace.
They were loaded.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say, I felt like if I could have played better, and I played terrible that series for whatever reason, I couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. I did not make my three-point shot. And I felt like I was a big part of hurting us. And really, even though it was a gentleman's sweep, those games were more competitive than a gentleman's sweep. I felt like if I could have just made a couple more threes, made it a little bit more respect. But I had a terrible offensive series. I rebounded the ball well that series, but did not score the ball well. And that killed us.
And well, when you say that, was there something going on in the background? Was there anything that occurred during that series that led to that?
It's a part of basketball. It's a part of the game. Sometimes you don't match up well with teams, and sometimes you go through slumps. Mine just came at a bad time. Through a course of an 82-game season, I've learned in my career, and if you look through my career, I think I played 7 or 8 seasons. I played the full 82 games. You're going to have lows. Mm-hmm. You're going to have stretches through the season where you just don't play well. And you don't know why. You're going to be doing the same routine. You're still going to be getting up the same shots. But it just ain't going for you. You have to learn how to figure out how to work your way through those slumps. And my slump hit the first round of the playoffs that particular year. And typically throughout my career in playoff situations, I've played my best basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually shocking to see that I didn't play that well that series. But that's one I always regret because we were 52-30. I thought we had a really, really good team. We played the Lakers. We played the Lakers really well that season. We were a matchup problem, nightmare for them. But we played against that Sacramento team that was really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were stacked. You finally you won your ring with Miami.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 2016. You actually beat your old team in the Dallas Mavericks. That was a 4-2 series win. That 6-game series against your hometown Bulls, though.
Yeah.
That was tough. That was a tough, gritty series. I talked to somebody who played in the NBA. You actually might know him because his dad is the European scouting director for the Bulls. Avika Dukin. His kid played in the NBA. He was saying how Nocioni was just a tough as shit power forward, a throwback power forward that would not take crap from anybody. Didn't you line up against him in that series?
A little bit. So that particular year, real quickly, when Pat Riley took over, so Stan Van Gundy started the year off coaching. So 20 games to the season, they fire Pat. I mean, they fire Stan. Pat came down. So when Pat Riley came down, he moved me to the 3 position. So I was coming off the bench my first 20 games. I was trying to do a Bob McAdoo and win 6th man of the year. Mm-hmm. But Pat was like, listen, I want you to start. And I ended up going into the starting lineup. But I would come out first and UD, because UD was the power forward. So I would come out first and we mixed our rotations up like that. But anyway, long story short, I was playing a small forward position for the remainder of the year. So it was different for me as far as guarding. So that particular run to the championship, I guarded Luol Deng the first round against the Bulls. The second round, I guarded Richard Jefferson. The third round, I guarded Josh Howard. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Tayshaun Prince first. Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals.
That's right, yeah.
Josh Howard. So it was different for me now, because now I'm not playing the typical power forwards. And I was playing 35, 36 minutes a night. So I'm playing big minutes at the small forward position. So that was different for me as far as defensively wise. But the great thing about it is I had Shaquille O'Neal and Alonzo Mourning behind me. So if a guy blow by me, I got a center back there that can, change his shot at least. Mm-hmm. So that was great about it. But that's what it was. It was really just about the Bulls matchup was different, and they played us tough. That Ben Gordon and Kurt Heinrich were really, really tough. And I'll say this. Kirk Heinrich guarded D. Rose tough. People that can go back and look at that film and look at that, D. Rose Dwayne Wade. I'm so sorry.
You got it.
He guarded Dwayne Wade so tough. Kirk Heinrich made it really tough on D. Wade in that series too as well. So it was different. Shaq struggled that series. He ended up having a huge game 6. I think he ended up having like 30 and 20 in game 6. But they just played us well. And we kind of put that on ourselves because the last part of the season, he got me thinking about all his memories now. Last part of the season, where we could have actually kind of like won out and avoided the Bulls. Guys wanted to rest the last few games. We ended up getting the Bulls, and which was not a great matchup for us. And they took us 6 games. Mm-hmm. So it was just one of those things, though, that, they matched up really well against us. And I got a little something. You don't even remember who was their center that year.
Who?
Ben Wallace.
Oh, I was asking what team. Yeah,
oh,
Ben Wallace, of course.
Yeah. And Ben Wallace guarded Shaq pretty good. He was a smaller center.
Very small compared to Shaq.
Yeah, he was small, but he was physical.
Yes.
So it was a difference. So it was a matchup thing. They matched up really well against us and made it difficult, but we got out of there.
Was Ben Wallace a talker?
No.
He didn't look like it.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it looked like he was very reserved on the court.
Yeah, he wasn't a talker.
Yeah. So you played with Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
What's your funniest Shaq story?
My funniest story with Shaq, I always loved Shaq on Mondays. We used to always have to do body fat and weight on Mondays. And Shaq
You told this story already.
Yeah.
He prides himself. I know, but he prides himself on being like this hilarious clown all the time.
Yeah, he used to put baby oil over his whole body so he couldn't get measured for body fat and weight. The little clicker thing that you stick on you for body fat and weight. He used to put baby oil on him. He used to piss the trainer off with that. We used to have to weigh in every week. So in Miami, every Monday you have to weigh in.
Riley would make you weigh in.
Yeah, every Monday. You got to weigh in and get on the scale and do your body fat and all that.
Uh-huh. Was he a prankster?
Oh yeah, Shaq is a great teammate. When you got to go through an 82 game season grind and actually go through playoffs, he's the greatest guy. Never too high, never too low. He keeps all the guys' spirits up. He likes to have fun throughout the season. But one of the best teammates I've had, especially for a guy of his stature, and he was great.
Totally. Give me, if you guys went to a restaurant, what is he ordering?
Actually, Shaq's not really a big eater, as crazy as that sounds.
Really?
Nah, he's not a guy that's going to order a lot of stuff. No, he doesn't drink at all. You can't get him to drink. And food is going to order basic stuff. And two, also, in Miami, when I played with him eating a lot, he did have to, he had to weigh in too.
Right.
So I think he lost a ton of weight because he always makes comments about how big he was in LA and he won 3 MVPs at that weight, and Pat made him lose all that weight. So he always talks about that, makes jokes about that.
Yeah, wasn't he like 370 in LA?
Yeah, that's what he says. I mean, obviously I wasn't there with him, but yeah, he said that. But I know in Miami, he was 315, 320.
Mm-hmm. On a serious note, you played with Alonzo Mourning.
Mm-hmm.
He received a kidney transplant from his cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And to my understanding, yes, he had a kidney disease, but to my understanding, didn't he take like 10, 20 pills a day?
Yeah. I tell the story or not. I tell him he's one of the most craziest person that I've ever been around. To watch him go through that, taking the pills every day and getting everything checked out on a consistent basis every day so he can be able to play basketball was something special to watch. And to watch how great he played that year and for us to win the NBA title, it was nothing sweeter, man, to be a part of that and watch that and how good he played in that finals. He was huge. Shaq didn't have a great finals, but everything Shaq didn't give us, Alonzo gave us. So just to watch that take place and to see him put that work in and see how much he lift weights and how much he took care of his body, and going through that was something special to see.
One of the people in your Mount Rushmore of shit talkers you played with in Miami, that was Gary Payton.
Yeah.
You also played with James Posey. He was also a really tough defender. But when you were playing with Gary Payton, was there one moment you recall where Gary Payton got into the head of somebody that he was defending and took them out of their game that you saw firsthand?
Oh, yeah, a lot. So just a quick backstory. You got to remember, I got traded to the Boston Celtics in 2005. And that was my first time playing with Gary. Gary Payton was in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So we played together in Boston, and then we both signed as free agents with the Miami Heat the next year, that summer. So I had already played with Gary and got a feel of how great of a defender he was. And then just to see him in Miami, he was terrific. A lot of times, Gary would guard the toughest two guard, and we would let D Wade concentrate on scoring. And Gary would do that even at his age at that time. He'd be like, yo, you score the ball, I'm going to guard these two guards. And that's how we played. We closed out so many games with Gary Payton guarding the best two guard on the floor. We did that. That was our MO. Late in games in fourth quarter, Gary Payton was going to close out because of his defensive ability.
Right, but did you see him? He was a fantastic defender. But could you remember him giving shit to a rook and that rook just struggling because of it?
I mean, I saw so many guys. Just about everybody he defends kind of going to struggle. I mean, he was such an elite defender. It's hard to say really pencil out one person that he did that to. I mean, he just was somebody that he was our glue guy.
Right.
And in that perimeter that we needed to be guarded from the 1 to the 2, we put Gary on, and he made it difficult for him. And one thing that was very unique about Gary, he knew how to play with the rules. The referees respected him so much defensively. So he got away with a lot of things that a lot of guys probably couldn't get away with. Because you got to remember, you couldn't hand check.
Mm-hmm.
But Gary found a way to be able to use his hands great, come up with steals, and get his hands on balls, and those things. So that's what made Gary really unique, is his ability to guard at the 1 and 2.
All right, I got a few more for you. Did Kevin Garnett ever approach you about joining the Celtics?
Yes. So, we just got to talking about it. So this is a true story. So Gary Payton was renewing his vows with his wife, and he had a ceremony out in L.A. And me and both Kevin attended. And Kevin pulled me to the side and wanted to talk to me about being a Celtic. And he said he may have an opportunity to put a trade together where he's going to be with the Celtics. And I just basically gave him the history, the backstory behind it, how I felt about the organization, how I felt about being a Celtic and playing there. And I thought he'd be a great fit. I thought him and Paul would be great together. This is before I knew Ray Allen was going to join it and make it a big three.
Right.
But I was speaking on the behalf of him playing with Paul and the organization. And we had a great and open and honest, candid conversation about it. And he alluded to that, this conversation that we had when they put his number in the rafters. I actually went to that ceremony when they put his number in the rafters.
Is it true that you were asked, why do you shoot so many threes? And your reply was, because there's no fours?
Yeah, so it was All-Star Weekend. I think for 2 years, I think I was one of the top three in 3-point attempts. So by All-Star break, I probably had shot 250, 300 threes, which was a lot back then for halfway through a season. And I'm not going to lie, I was just coming in from drinking. I went to my media request that I had to do, and it just came out naturally. Because I was getting asked the question so much. You know what I mean? You know how somebody just asks you a question, you're getting tired of it?
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things. I was getting tired of answering their question. So it just came out randomly. There's no like rhyme or reason for it. Just like, man, because there ain't no force. Yeah.
But it's objectively hilarious.
Yeah.
It is. Knowing the backstory now, though, I can see why it's annoying. But just like knowing that it came off so naturally, I mean, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So and it went viral, and actually, people in the press, I mean, people didn't look at it negatively. People actually really enjoyed the quote.
Yeah, because it's creative.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Should there be a 4-point line in basketball?
No.
Okay.
You never know.
I mean, Steph Curry would live there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he would.
Him and Trey.
There's a few guys with some real range that's not going to be like shooting a half-court shot where it looks crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's only a few guys.
Yeah. On a serious note, everybody knows about your story. Everybody knows about the money. What is something that you see that they get wrong or they just don't know about the situation that if you could clarify, you would, just to set the record straight?
I think the biggest thing is that people think I lost my money gambling. And I think that that's far from the truth. Did I lose some money gambling? Yeah, but I lost peanuts compared to what I lost in bankruptcy. But I think the situation that happened in Las Vegas with the markers and then the bankruptcy coming kind of like simultaneously kind of made people think and feel that I lost my money gambling. So it's unfortunate because you hate for people to think that about you. And I mean, it's not nothing like that I felt bad about, but you want the truth to always be told. And that's why I've worked so hard after that to be a part of financial literacy, to be on the forefront, to tell my own story. Obviously now it's a lot easier with the podcast, with social media. But back then, you didn't have all these avenues to be able to tell your story. And so it was a little bit tougher then. So it was tough in the beginning because obviously you want to be able to tell your story and get it out there. And I didn't really get an opportunity to do that. But over the years, over the last 7-8 years, I'm a part of the Players Association. I do all the financial literacy. I've been a part of the financial literacy team for 4 years, talking to players. I've had an opportunity to work separately with Morgan Stanley and go out and talk to kids about financial literacy. So I've had numerous opportunities since then to be able to tell my story and also be able to educate. And it's been great.
So it's safe to say that the sunshine comes after the rain.
Oh, without question.
All right, I got 2 more for you. You saw that viral video of Paul Pierce
Yes.
with the women
Uh-huh.
smoking, drinking, getting a massage. ESPN fired him for violating a moral clause in his contract.
Mm.
When you saw the video and the news of his firing, what was your reaction?
Um, I just was pissed that why is he rolling the camera? Why is he on live? It's nothing when you're in the privacy of your own home. Enjoy yourself. Do what you want to do in your own home. Um, I didn't understand at that time why would he decide to put his phone up and go live. Um, I didn't like the way the second part of that. I didn't like the way ESPN handled it because obviously, you know, nobody lives necessarily a mistake-free life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was unjust to do him that way after that situation. So we all sometimes make mistakes. And I think it was him. It wasn't like nobody else was involved. I don't think he hurt anybody. It wasn't maybe a suspension,
Right.
but termination completely, that's a little harsh. Um, and even not to even bring it up, but even the Shannon Sharp situation, you see they handled that totally different.
Mm-hmm.
It was a similar situation, just like Paul, internet, privacy of your own home, but you handle that totally different.
They would
Shannon
probably make the case, Twan, because there was no video, because there was no visuals. There wasn't necessarily not that I agree with it, but there was no visual aspect to it.
It was audio.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying it seemed like they learned their lesson because it seems like Shannon and it's got good chemistry over there on that show. So it seemed like it worked out.
Right, true. Okay, these are rapid fire questions. I asked a few people from Instagram to ask, so here we go. My cousin, Adam Kravitz, wants to know, does the NBA prepare you for life after the NBA?
Not good enough. They do, but not good enough.
How so?
I think we have to have more meetings. We have to make sure that we understand every guy's career is going to be different. Some guys are going to be short-lived. Some guys are going to have long, prosperous careers. I think we have to do a better job of helping everybody. Once you put that NBA uniform, we have to be able to help everybody, no matter what.
Fair point. Dan asks, how was the workload while you were in the NBA? Was it quite heavy or light? Was it just right where you were still able to get better, all while having enough time to do your own things?
The workload is all predicated on what coach you plan for. Every coach is different. You got some coaches that's going to practice you 4 or 5 hours. That might be a little extreme, 3, 4 hours. Then you're going to have some coaches that want to come in and get it in an hour and a half. The discipline to that question is that you have to stay on top of your shots, your health, a lot of those things, because you are grown, you're going to have to get on your own. The team is going to provide a lot of things, if not everything, but it is the extra work and the discipline that you put in is going to make that your career long and prosperous.
Right. You answered this previously, but Richie wants to know, what was the inspiration for the shimmy?
The inspiration was really something that I started in school with my teammates. We used to dance and play around, and I danced a little bit in college where if I dunked the ball, I would dance a little bit. And once I got pro, I just started having fun. But I would only do it I tried to do it only if I got like an and one, where I can actually do it. Because in college, it would be hard to do it because I had to get in the press. But it was just something I did, just having fun. Nothing really behind it. And once I started doing it, this guy kind of like, it just became a habit. I couldn't even stop it sometimes.
Right.
I'll just get caught up in my emotions and get the plan, and it just happened naturally.
Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying this is a rude question. Okay. Mm-hmm. Rank these players from, in your opinion, best to worst. None of them are worst, of course. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That comes from Kama Neal 92.
I go Michael, Kareem, Kobe, and Shaq.
How would Shaq feel if he just heard that?
It depends. I mean, I think Shaq wants to make sure that he's in the conversation with Kareem. Possibly feels like he's better than Kareem.
Mm-hmm.
No, that I don't know that personally, but when you give me that 4, Michael, obviously, I think is the greatest player ever. I got Kareem in there as well. Kobe, then Shaq.
Mm-hmm. All right, lastly, Miko says, looking back and processing all that has happened, would you trade your championship in for $20 million and a trade to play somewhere else at that time?
No, I would take my championship. I'm in me personally, I can't say this about everybody else. I'm in a very unique class of guys to win one in college and pro.
Yeah.
You can do the stat if you want to, but I'm assuming it's probably 60, 70 guys, and that may be on the high side. It could be. But to be in that unique group of, I would just say, less than 100 people to win one in college and pro, I wouldn't trade that in for nothing.
Absolutely. All right, Twan. Well, look, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you hopping on. Yep. Most of all, what I really appreciate about you was when we worked together, the way that you would treat your coworkers, and it did not matter who it was. It could be a PA who was going through the NBA segments that night. It could be somebody who works in sales, or it could be a co-host of yours. You treated everybody with respect. You really love basketball. So it could have been anybody. If they knew hoops, they had a seat at the table with you. And it was just a joy to work with you. I'm glad that we were able to keep in touch, and I'm glad that we were able to do this, man. And I wish you the best on your trip to New York, and I wish you the best with the next future media endeavors, man.
Yes, sir. Pull it for me, baby. I'm trying to make it work. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.